Welcome back to the Evolve Sales Leader, powered by Overpass. I'm Jonathan Fisher. Among business leaders today, much of the conversation centers around, changing market, global place factors, artificial intelligence, and other outside elements that we don't necessarily control fully. But what about what's happening on the inside of our companies? Well, today's guest insists that when it comes to B2B sales, we are overdue for a major overhaul. Scott Marker is a multi decade career as a business consultant, adjunct professor, and executive trainer who's helped hundreds of companies, ranging from startups all the way up to Fortune 50 enterprises. He's also a successful author, and his latest book is called Broken: How to Fix B2B Sales, Drive Profitable Growth, and Win. In our conversation today, Scott will detail for us what his personal research and years of experience reveal about the true state of B2B sales today and what he believes must be done to fix it. Scott, it's great to have you back on the Evolve Sales Leader. Welcome.
Hey, I'm glad to be back and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, why don't you help our listener who may or may not be familiar? What does your day to day work look like? What do you do to serve the business community?
Actually, I have two main occupations. One, I own a franchise and I run local professional referral groups. So I have three groups that are local successful business owners, and we get together and brainstorm on ways to help each other's businesses grow, and then also referrals. And then my other company, which is a B2B sales and marketing consultant. Um, uh, Basically agency, and I've done that since my first book in 2009. I set that up, and I just help companies. A lot of times when they come to me, they talk about marketing and other things, but it changes real quickly to sales, and that's where for years. And I've been in sales myself right out of college in B2B sales for small companies and large companies. So that's the two things I've consulting companies on B2B sales and marketing, and then also a franchise that I referral groups.
Well, and you do have, from your own experience in selling, in your book, you share that you kind of had a trajectory of growth and a set of experiences that really kind of maybe made you a bit of a contrarian. An accepted conventional way of approaching things when it comes to training, compensating, and otherwise managing our B2B sales outreach, and especially the way we treat our people. You've got a very different angle on that than just about any other author that I know of out there in this day and age. What is that story in short form? And maybe you could begin to tell us what made you really start to think, hey, we're just doing this whole thing the wrong way.
Really, it's like I said, in 2009 was the first company. I wrote my book, was the first company I worked for. The owner brought me in. They were flat, 10-year-old company, flat, had two salespeople, let them go, hired me. And first time ever, someone just said, I was a director of sales and marketing, help us out, get us going again. And that's where I really started thinking back of all my past, jobs, and then interviewing lots of business owners and leaders and salespeople. And I found out that a lot of my stories that I had in my past were sometimes either verified, that I was validated, that I was correct. How terribly a lot of companies treat their sales professionals, or even worse sometimes. And so that's really where I'm one of those people that like to look at complex problems and then try to figure out simple solutions to fix them. And that's a challenge sometimes, but that's really my secret sauce. Is really, hey, like sales, the B2B sales is there's so many things that are wrong with it, broken, right?
Mm.
That where do you start? And so that's my brain trying to figure out, like, okay, let's break this down and figure out how to fix this finally.
Well, I think it's a good message. There's definitely a tendency to want to look outside, or maybe look how we could make subtle evolutionary change. And especially for people in business for a long time, you learn not to make too many radical changes all at once. But there are those moments where it's time to disrupt. It's time to really take a look at the foundations. And when it comes to B2B selling, you detail several key areas where it just seems like things need a deeper look,
Yep.
need a redo. Why don't you start us off with one of the most important areas, or you've got a set in the book of five or six of those.
Yep.
Uh, why don't you hit us with one of them where you think that most B2B sales leaders are needing to change the way they do things?
Yeah, and I'll kind of like I even have a little cheat sheet here right on my book, right? And as I mentioned before the show, is any complex problem, anytime somebody says comprehensive, solution is something, it's gonna be very challenging. Change management, I got it in the book. I can't remember the percentage of companies are change management. They just try to do too many things at once, and it just doesn't happen. So I break down things to some of the major problems, right? So the biggest problems are, and then we'll start with one, but are training and development, and then I joke and say or lack of it, right? The dreaded CRM, the data entry nightmare, the compensation debacle, um, unrealistic expectations and stretch goals, prospecting and the dreaded cold calling, and the sky high turnover. So we can talk about start off with like training and development or the lack of it.
Definitely kick it off with that. I definitely,
Okay.
there's a lot of different approaches to that, ranging from what one of my mentors, Chet Holmes, used to call the tribal method, which is just do what you see and hear
Yeah.
being done, right? Go here. Tom's been here for a long time. Hang out with Tom.
Yep.
And it's not really very well
Yeah.
structured all
No,
the
no,
way
you
up
you it's
to full fledged like learning management systems, right? And
you,
everything in between. There's a lot of out there. But what do you think's the overall trend, and how should that be fixed?
well, the funny thing is just like you just said, is a lot of times they have formal training that they send you to, but then they send you to spend time with one of the most successful, other sales professionals that works in the company. And a lot of times I've been there, that person will say that sales training, it's nice, but don't do that. Do this. And so companies spend thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales training that doesn't. Okay, here's what that most people don't say is doesn't cause them to be better at their jobs. Okay, that's really the in the goal. I say to look at it, always focus on the customer. It usually sales training is all about trying to make them better at knowing all the features and benefits, and then
Right.
better at overcoming objections. Right, where I look at it like, shouldn't it be knowing your offerings benefits to the customer
Hmm.
and the outcomes they give your customers, right? So shouldn't I be better at understanding our offering we have to be able to explain it? First of all, listen to the customer's problems. So train you on listening to their, be able to pick up on different things they say, and from there, be able to offer, say yes, oh yeah, under from what you say, here's how our offering helps customers just like you, and that's what's missing in sales training right there.
So is it that they aren't covering the right things in the training, or is it maybe the content is there, but it's not reinforced in the real world of selling as it's
Yeah.
happening in real time in that company, or is it some combination of those two things?
And I have lots of stats in my book, but it's funny when all you gotta do is they survey managers about sales training if they think it works, and you get like 85% say they think it works, right? And you ask sales professionals, you know, after they get done taking it, right? What do they think? And 85% say it doesn't work. I mean, that right there
Right.
is a red flag, right? So
Yeah.
it's it's going back and looking at what again, the end result is what your goal is to help educate prospective customers on understand first of all, listening to them to see if you're, understand what their challenges are to see if your solutions, your offerings can help them, right? Where most sales training is not about that. It's about too much about the features, the CRM, how you set up an account, how you schedule your follow-ups and all that, tactical stuff, that's all about you and the selling and not enough about the customer. So I think that's overall what's wrong with the sales training is too much about focus on the company and, even learn how you're gonna make more, how am I gonna make the most amount of money, right? Versus how am I gonna help the most amount of customers be successful?
Yeah, I would
And
resonate
reverse
with that.
engineer it from and then reverse engineer, how am I gonna make our existing customers and our prospective customers, I like to say, don't say buyers. Buyers are prospective customers, right? It makes it keep it more customer centric, right?
Hmm.
How am I going to help them be more educated on our offerings, and then work your way backwards? And
Right.
that's just not the way sales training is done today.
No, that's very true. It is about the features, benefits, bells, whistles, and how you can make more.
Yep.
Typically, very, very true. Maybe a little bit on on your own company's history, but even that's often missing, and very little on competitors, and almost
Yep.
nothing about the buyers in terms of formal training. I think you really are hitting on something there. That could be a show all its own, but you have other areas where you think B2B sellers, sales leaders rather, need to take a second look.
Right.
You mentioned compensation. You call it the compensation debacle
Yep.
in your book. Those are strong words. Tell us what you mean by that.
Okay. Here's the deal. Let's take a quick case study. Everybody, not everybody, but some people will push back on me and say, Scott, oh, it's nice to say what you're saying, but sales has always been the way it's been. Well, uh, in the last 3 years, every major study will say buyers, over half of buyers don't want to have a salesperson involved in their purchasing. Gartner did one, 800, right? Millennials up to 72% don't want a salesperson involved.
Hmm.
Why is that? Because they know that KPIs, key performance indicators, have everything to do about their pocketbook and not about helping them succeed. So
Hmm.
compensation, the debacle is it creates, to present day, it create many at money companies. I would say most creates unethical behavior.
Hmm.
And what people don't talk about is, if you have somebody, a lot of the, especially SaaS companies, a lot of them will have like a low base, and you have to even earn your way up to your base, your base you're going to get, uh, and then anyway, and then put high stretch goals, and then pressure that if you don't meet those goals, you're going to be in a PIP, a performance improvement, a plan, right, and maybe get fired, right. So that's what no one talks about. It's the combination of those that creates unethical behavior. And I'll give you the case study. Anybody wants to disagree with me, I go, I won't. I'll give you real short here. Wells Fargo Bank, their CEO said, everyone's a salesperson. We are going to make every single person in our branch a salesperson. They gave them high goals every month, right? And they would look at them every week. Their KPIs and everything were identical to a salesperson. Well, anybody miss what happened to them? It went viral.
Hmm.
Hundreds of thousands of fake accounts got set up. It was just, I mean, it's just a debacle. I mean, how bad it was. And so there's a case study on what's wrong with compensation. And so that's one. There's a case study. And guess what? Anymore, buyers know that. And that's why more and more buyers are avoiding. They always say, buyers are 72% or whatever it is, through their journey before they talk to a salesperson. A lot of times it's because they have to, not because they want to. It's because they get to the point where, oh, brother, now I need to, I want to really get to the nitty gritty, and I want to, get talking to somebody, and they force you to talk to a salesperson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to talk about compensation, SDRs a lot of times are compensated on what? Set up meetings and demos,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So they'll set up people. This happens it happened to me. They'll set up meetings that, because they're compensating on it, right? That really aren't a good fit for the AE. Anyway, so there it is. I mean, it's just some of this stuff is so easy that, again, if people disagree with me, look at Wells Fargo case study, and then also look at study after study showing that buyers don't want to talk to salespeople. That should be a hint that compensation needs to be changed.
What is the key change in compensation that you propose, Mr. Scott Marker?
Well, I think that compensation should be the same as any other position, right? Which I'll get to one of my other solutions. But I think they should have a full salary like any other person in the company. I think then they need to be bonused off of only bring in the right type of customers, right? So get bonus points, right? Not money. Where you get into trouble is when you reward somebody for every time you get a new customer. That's where we get into trouble, right? So get away from that. You want to reward people for bringing in only the right type of customers. So how do you know that? You survey customer service after while they're onboarding the customer. Wow, Jonathan, I cannot believe That was the easiest onboarding I ever did. They truly understood what we did and how it helped solve their problems, right? And then from there, retention, ongoing, right? And bonus off of that. And I say upserve, cross serve rather than so to be more a customer. But how do you help the customer succeed further down the line? Is that the sales professional? Is that customer success teams? All in the above. I think you need to have everybody in the company should be have bonuses because there's even in a minute way, their product support, right? Or product development. They might not have, and they should have, talking to existing customers, but even positions in the company that don't have a direct interaction with the customers, right? They should all get some type of bonuses off of the success of their customers. That way, it gives the whole company a customer-centric mindset that we all succeed when the customers succeed. Where it is right now, it's it's all about, I get a big bonus check if I close this new, they didn't even say customer. A lot of times they hit the gong because they close a new deal.
Yeah.
Right. So and again, people that disagree with me, just look at the state right now of where we're at,
Hmm.
and the buyers don't want to talk to you. So this is a perfect opportunity for a company that wants to disrupt, right? And real quick on this, you can't when you do anytime you do a change, especially at a big company, doing what I recommend, make a big change to everybody. No, 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 no. If you have 10 salespeople, take two of them with one and partner up with one marketing person, right? And do a pilot program, and they're all rewarded on exactly what I just talked about. And then compare that to the constant turnover of the other people. And pretty soon it won't take long for the company to switch everybody over to it. But doing a pilot program to prove the concept, and then from there, then from there on social media, you brag. We don't have commissioned salespeople. Our every position in our company are compensated on your success as a customer.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting challenge. So, sales leaders who are listening, maybe give that a trial, right? Take a couple of folks and pair them up, see how the results may compare to the conventional approach. So, compensation is another area that you say is in need of a tune up. How about the way that we set expectations and try to call the team to improve performance with things like goal setting and so forth? You mentioned that in your book as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, what right now what the challenge is, when you have, everybody talks about alignment between, like, marketing and sales. You can't have alignment if you're not all on the same page, meaning that if you're not all compensated the same, right? So, um, eh, when you set the expectations, there should be, there's really should be one pipeline, right, for the whole freaking company, right? And everybody's trying to contribute to it. Some people are going to contribute more, yes, right? But putting realistic expectations. In my book, I talk about it. I said in my first book, just like the martial arts, right? I was heavily in the martial arts, and they don't say, okay, you're going to come in here and work your butt off for 10, 12 years to get your black belt. No, they have they give you belts in between, and each belt you get stripes. It's that small gratification. You get excited. You work harder for it rather than some big stretch goal that's out here, right? When you set expectations too high, you demotivate people, and that's really what where we're at here at the landscape is that you get somebody that you know really crushes it one year, and you set their goals so high, they're pretty much deflated because they're like, "There's no way I'll ever get this year." I mean, it's just crazy. Why not? Um, set the goals that are yes, you gotta give push people a little bit. I'm not one of those people to say, no, no, just hope everybody does a good job. No, everybody needs some type of goals they go for and shoot for. We just to make sure that they're realistic goals, right? And when you get them, let's celebrate them, but make it smaller, smaller goals in shorter amounts of times. And when you meet them as a company and individuals succeed versus right now in sales, it's just all about we all know in sales that if you meet your goals, especially for the year, and you blow them out of the water, good luck trying to meet them next year because they're going to make them so high you'll never get them, and which demotivates people rather than motivates them.
Yeah, for sure. It could be very demotivating when they're constantly raising that bar, so it can
Yep.
feel like it's kind of an end. It's Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill
And then, hey,
after a
real quick
while.
on this, I've been saying the same thing for like 14 years since my first book, and it's funny because um, Ryan Walsh, which has RepView, and he puts out as he would not like this, but kind of the glass doors of SaaS companies and sales interviews existing, and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of sales professionals. And he's finding out just what I said is that um, that they a lot of times, it, they do sky's the limit. They say, "Hey, we want you to make big bucks." I guarantee you, as soon as you start. In fact, this happened over and over again. And then he not verified, backed me up. Was that if a lot of companies, there's a big. I taught at Boise State. There's a classic case for IBM. The rep goes in, closes a big deal, is going to make $2.2 million. Right? Sky's the limit. Good job. Slap him on the back. What did they do? I knew what they did. Every comp plan has an asterisk. They actually changed his plan after it was done, and they gave him 500 grand. Right? And he sued them and lost because that's what. So companies, that's another thing that demotivates you. As soon as you start to reach, if you do reach one of these goals they put way out there and say you can make a big bunch of bucks, once you make them, they'll change them after the fact. So anyway, that's why, again, just shows that the compensation has been broken, and until a company changes it, they're going to keep getting the same thing, which is demotivated salespeople.
Well, we don't want demotivated salespeople. That is absolute fact, and it's always a challenge to keep them firing on all cylinders. No doubt about that. So, talk to us about the other big problem that you have put your finger on when it comes to B2B selling, and that is just the pretty horrible turnover rates. A lot of
Oh,
folks inside companies don't even seem to know what the true numbers are, and certainly what the real costs are. You've done some pretty good research on that. Why don't you share with us more on that topic?
this is probably one of the biggest things in my book that's a takeaway. And I recently had another guy that Ryan Walsh actually put up something in the spreadsheet that showed really did a bit. I kept a basic one in my book showing the true cost of turnover, and he does a lot better job. And somebody else is going to, a Sigma, some fancy mathematician is going to work with us to show even a better idea. But uh, the cost of turnover is, I I say, horrendous is really what it is. And for over a decade, the average turnover, and this is the honor system, so they survey managers on what your turnover is. And I ask them all the time. I've asked hundreds of sales managers over the years to interview them. Most of them don't know what it is, so I think they're guessing. But anyway, let's go. Let's say it's right. It's 14 to 18 months. So every year and a half, you're having turnover, right? And two things. One, do managers give a shit? I'm gonna say give a shit about people. Salespeople are people with families, and one of the number one problems with relationships are financial. So having going from job to job to job, right? That is terrible. But
Yeah.
what I found out is talking about my concerns over the years, speaking and all the stuff that most business leaders don't seem to care. So I
Mm.
thought, well, let's make a business case to care. So I came up with some formulas to show the true cost. Like, for a real quick one is, if your company average salesperson, you say, oh, ours is about 18 months, right? Okay. So you take what it costs to onboard them, subtract that from all the revenue they bring in, right? Right. That's what for that rep made. Now, if you could, and then no one talks about, what about if it takes you 6 weeks or 2 months to hire the next salesperson and no one's producing in that territory, or that, where you got to add that money in too, right? So now what happens to you as a company? You moved your tenure rate up to 24 months. Do the same drill. How much money does the average rep bring on, right? Minus what it costs to bring them on, all that stuff. How much? Now your company has an average um, tenure of a sales professional of 36 months, 48 months. It goes on and on and on. And
Mm.
that's where I think businesses need to really look. They just go, oh yeah, turnover is really expensive. We need to really sit down, and someone needs to, like, do an analysis on a company, and I really I say it in my book, I think you got to be careful as a sales manager if you do what I say on that, because you might get, I mean, if your CEO looks at that and says, sees it for the last 6 years, your turnover rate, you'll probably get fired. So
Hmm.
I think that so looking at the positive side, we're talking all gloom and doom. Here's the positive side. This is the opportunity for a company to compensate their people right, brag about it, on social media, on LinkedIn, that you're compensating, right? And you can brag about it. Hey, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Prospective customer, right? When you talk to a customer, their average, the average, experience you're gonna be talking to someone is 18 months. With us, our average uh, uh, sales sales professional, call them, I wouldn't even call a sales professional, right, solutions experts here, right, are paid for your success, not commissioned for your sell, but paid on your success, right? And our average person has 60 months experience. Brag about it. I mean, as a buyer, I want to talk. I want to talk to that company over a competitor, that an equal competitor, as a buyer too. One of the first things I'd ask when I'm talking to a salesperson, how long you been there?
Hmm.
And a lot of times it's going to be, I've been here for 6 months. If you're buying a SaaS product that you're, I'm a chief marketing officer, and my job's on the line if I get the wrong product. Right now, things are tough in the whole SaaS industry, right? So I buy a solution that is going to cost the company $8,000 a month, and I pick the wrong one, I can get fired, right? I don't want to talk to someone that's been there for 6 months and it's under tremendous pressure to close me at the end of the month.
Well, and I do like the idea of talking to somebody who I kind of get what you're saying. The whole angle of they're not paying on commission, and I say that as a guy who's I'm pretty into sales,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm not even fully sold on your thesis that we shouldn't
yeah.
be selling with commission, but I kind of get it at the same time. And I think it may differ based on what you're selling and how transactional it is. But having somebody really knows their stuff, um, and the real dollars. I mean, I was sharing. You and I were talking before we started the program. From like 15 years ago, there was a Harvard Business Review study. It was showing the average cost was 60 grand per bad hire. So that's got. I mean,
That's
15 years
15
ago.
years
It's got to be
you
twice that now, right? That's
No,
factoring in a lot,
I yeah,
salary, man hours to train them, lost sales,
yep.
and
I
trying to
tell you that
fill that
they
spot.
do a poor job. They do a poor, they look at really some of the hard costs. They don't look at all the soft costs, which add up tremendously. So
Yeah,
it's so much more than that.
yeah,
And again, that's why the turnover, if you don't care about people, care about your bottom line. And
yeah.
I'm a
People's
person that says
self-interest.
you should
Yeah,
care about both, right? So
yeah,
it's a
of course.
win-win. Care about your
Yeah,
people and have a bottom line. But I'm telling you, if you have turnover in your company, it's impacting your bottom line. You again, as my dad says, some companies make money in spite of themselves, right? You
yep,
can make a lot more money doing it. What I recommend, and then your thing, I have a lot of people say, well, people are, again, buyers don't want to talk to people that are commissioned. So you can say, well, I think, we got to keep people in commission. You can motivate them in other ways, like again, shorter term goals. Like give them a goal, but not on one sale. Make it
mm,
on the retention, right?
mm,
And again, make it on most sales professionals that I know, the only reason they get all excited about closing one deal is because it's worth a lot of money to them to buy a new car or something, or gonna
right,
save their job, right? But
right,
most of them are good people and really do wanna help out people, right?
sure.
So let's get away from the thing that's gonna get in front of them to be possibly unethical, and let's just get them to focus on what's best for the customer.
Yeah, and I think the main note. So you're not against compensating in a financial way.
No.
It just shouldn't be a direct one-to-one per sale fat cat
Yep,
commish
yep.
because the upfront transaction there's too much incentive
Oop,
to maybe bend the truth or lie outright, and it's not focused on the customer. I'm sold on that, man. I think we need to really put a lot of focus on putting the customer first, putting our people first. I think you've sold the listener, and I think a lot of our individuals listening right now would love to go further with you. You've written this
Okay.
fantastic book. Is that perhaps a good place for them to start if they want to go deeper on your ideas?
Yeah, I mean, it's on Amazon. I mean, if you like Kindle, get it for Kindle because it's cheaper. But yeah, like I said, it's really it's about it's about sales and marketing, and it's really about the whole company, turning the whole company into com a, a customer centric company. It's right now the craze is rev ops right now, right?
Yeah,
Everything is about rev ops. I warn in the book, changing everybody's title. What are they doing? They're turning everybody in the company into salespeople, right?
yeah,
Where they're so focused on revenue, they're forgetting the customer, right?
yeah,
A good customer buying experience. So I say that you can have a whole company focus on the customer. So customer ops versus rev ops. So I every time I'll anytime I'll have you can have a lone wolf mentality against I'm against the whole team. So my whole team working together, rowing together, customer service, marketing, sales, product, all of us rowing together for the customer against a bunch of sales lone wolves. We're going to beat you long term for sure. We'll beat you every time.
love it. Well, I think most of our attendees, this is probably their one of their favorite things about our show is we have live Q&A. We've already got some great questions lined up in the chat, ready to address
Awesome.
here, Scott, in our Afterglow session.
That
For
was great.
listeners who still haven't posted, go ahead and take some time to do that. We've got a few more minutes, and we'll dive right in and get you some Ask Me Anything
I love
time
questions.
with our expert on hand. So, Scott, let me go grab a couple here. I've got in the chat section. We'll put them up here and talk about them. So let's see here. Here's just a comment. A LinkedIn user they didn't identify by name, but like the true cost of not caring. Is kind of it's partially what you're. You think that's fair? You riff on that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, eh, eh, yeah. I mean, I'm just taking it like not caring. Like, I mean, if you're not caring about the customer,
Yeah.
well, I mean, no, both. Eh, There's two. I say this. There's two customers, right? You have
Hmm.
internal customers and external customers. If you're a CEO running a company, you need to look at both of those, right?
Yeah.
And there's too much focus on the shareholders, right? If you
Hmm.
have shareholders, right? There's too much focus on revenue. You need to focus on, right, having your internal customers and external customers. And again, if you focus on those, revenue will follow. So I agree
Yeah.
with the person.
So I think Andrew Ellenberg has a good follow up question to that, Scott. He's asking what business performance metrics should we be looking at to be more customer focused? You touch on a couple. Maybe you could flesh that out further for us.
Let me see. Well, I mean, can you ma- can you ask him to further elaborate on that, or?
Well, I think so. So if our KPIs are not attuned correctly, what would be your idealistic
Oh, yeah,
KPIs?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, and again, I lay this out in the book is uh, and again, you don't have to buy my book. Follow me on LinkedIn, Scott Marker. This is my trademark blue pin trade,
Scott,
and
you're too modest. Everybody go buy Scott's book. Okay,
I'll
there I
give
did
it
it.
all
All right.
away for you, I'll give it all away, right? But no, really, what I say the KPIs are is everybody in the company needs to have similar KPIs, right? That keeps us all rowing together, right? Now they're going to be different depending on your situation, but the KPIs need to be razor focused on. And I don't get into this very much, but touch on it, but product development, they need to talk to customers. Marketing, talk to customers. Don't be in your little your little room with all your note sticks and the what the exact ideal customer looks like. You know how you figure that out? Get on call, not and I love the recordings of calls, right? Revenue intelligence, right? Calls and recording. I love that, right? But nothing's better than talking to a prospective customer or being in the meeting and having to answer questions for an existing customer, right? Will help you. And as a whole company, by being focused, listening more to the customers and what they want, and then when they succeed as they grow, um, you get the company. Everybody gets bonus off of that. And I'm really a
Mm,
big believer in not everybody gets bonuses in the company.
mm,
Everybody. If the company's successful, there has to be a way to give every single, because I don't care what it is, there's your whatever position you have in the company, you're real quick. I uh, a president, it was an embellished story, but the President Kennedy said he took a wrong turn in NASA and he ran into a janitor and he asked the janitor, "What do you do here at NASA?" And then NASA said, "I'm here to put a man on the moon." Now it's a woman on the moon, right? But a man on the moon, right? I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. In a company, every position, your job is to make happy customers be successful. And
Hmm.
if you get that culture, you're gonna, and so all the KPIs are all about how do we develop products and services and deliver them to make our customers more successful and happier, and make your KPIs on that and work your way back. Versus a lot of them right now are all about nothing. They're really nothing to do with the customer success,
Right, right. I think
especially
that's really
long term. Especially
that's a
long term.
that's a really strong message. I think Ken Jennings brings in a good question here. He's like, "Isn't it a fact though, since the company's taking really all the risk?" And that's the thing about commission, right? You're kind of
Yeah.
sharing some of the risk with the sales professional, which allows the company to be in a position to give out more of their profit share. So in this scenario, isn't that going to have sort of a downward, just the economics of it, a downward pressure on overall pay? What would you say to that?
Say it again. So like in
So since the company's taking all the risk in the sales transaction, overall pay will have to go down, won't it?
Oh, I mean, it depends. I mean, if like salespeople, for example, they always brag that they're going to be multimillionaires, or and guess what? Once they get there, like I said before, case after case, they change it, right? So I think that overall, again, if you stay in the same job for 10, 20 years, right? Even 10 years, even 5 years versus every year and a half, right? You're going to make more money because of that, all the breaks and stuff like that. And when you're talking about the companies taking all the risk and stuff like that, well, guess what? I think they should take some of the risk, right? And again, the main thing is the way, looking at it from the customer, the way it is right now, where they pay salespeople sometimes 100% commission or almost no. So they're taking all the risk, not the company, which I think is totally unethical, right? But again, if we don't care about the salesperson, it's all about the company. Buyers are telling the companies, "We're done with you the way you have your commission plans right now. We're done." The younger we get, the more we don't want to talk to your salespeople because you're creating people
Yeah.
that don't care about us.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. So this is sort of a long one from J. Michael Martinez, but I think I can summarize it for us. He's wondering, do you have other? So if we want customer champions rather than salespeople, I think that's good language, by the way,
Yeah, I like that.
Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, I think you've sold us on that thesis, Scott, for sure. And it seems like Michael is asking for other creative ways that a customer champion can do their work and help get the prospective buyer excited about the solution you're bringing to market.
I'm not sure where he's going with that, but
Well,
yeah,
so
there's a
he
lot of way, huh?
like he says, like for example, using more video, giving free
Oh,
on-site visits, something other suggestions like this that could
yeah, I
make
mean,
them more
customer
successful.
champions, there's a lot of things you can do. If I'm understanding right about videos and stuff like that, is I um I I think that sales professionals, right? They need to more and more, um, if you're supposed to be experts at what you do, right? Not just salespeople, right? What you do, you really need to make a brag about stuff like that. So get active on LinkedIn, get in groups, get in your customer groups, learn what they do a lot, and then maybe you know uh, do interviews with some of your customers, right? Get on there and some of your existing customers. Do some interviews as yourself to show yourself as not a salesperson, right? As basically like I love you, like customer champion, right? So how you brought on a customer, bring on one of your good customers, right? And then a year later, they're saying, hey Michael, man, you totally changed our company, on and on and on. Hey, would you mind having a quick video and record that? Just as a testimonial. Sure, 5 minutes I'll give you, right? And then interview them and have them tell how, and then be ready to coach them. Like, well, what about this too? Oh yeah, you guys did a great job on that. And yeah, and then put that out on LinkedIn and other places. So, I mean, I'm a But the challenge is by doing it that direction, you have to be careful always because if your company's in the traditional sales, right, where it's all about pounding the phone, you have to be careful doing it, being more consultative because you're going to be in there. It's so short term goals. A lot of the companies are. They're not going to give you a runway to do that. So they need to give you a little bit more of a runway. So it needs to be a balance, is what I think is that they need to be more realistic on the expectations to give you a little bit more time and maybe specifically carve out. And some companies are doing this right now, specifically carve out a little bit of time during the week that you can get on social media and show your expertise.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Jared Miller is asking, we say, is actually adding more like, isn't it funny how companies don't focus on the customer's bottom line rather than their own? I'm sure certain you'll resonate with that. And do you have more suggestions as far as how we could maybe apply that to the discovery phase? Do you have, because it could be awkward if it's not done the right way. What have you seen in your training and work with sales teams that can help you learn more what your customers' goals are, prospects' goals rather,
Right.
before they become customers?
Well, two things. One, I have a saying: turn every product into a service, every service into a solution, every solution into a customer success story, right?
Mm,
And what I mean by that is when you get into talking to a prospective customer, sometimes they don't even know their own problems, right? So if they're in a vertical market, you can come into them and say, "Hey, we've helped out similar companies like you before, and the challenges we help them overcome is this, and here's." And they said they had a 40% increase in X, right? Do you have those type of problems? And a lot of times, not always, if you kind of give them kind of a hint of some stuff you helped companies like them, they'll say, "Holy smokes, how do you know us so well?" Right? And then,
mm,
yes, I'm a big believer in if you can, it's tough, but a lot of companies will say, "Oh, you've saved us tons of money." Even if it's a ballpark, say, "Hey, can you give us," you say a lot of money. What do you mean by that? Well, you saved us 40%. Really? What does that mean? Well, I say, could you come, if you were to give a low estimate per month impact financially, what would you say? I mean, low. Give me a low estimate.
mm.
I don't know, $8,000 a month. Perfect. Hey, would you mind if I ever, another customer like you came along? We say we've had some people that have had, up to 8,000. Oh, sure. Right.
Yeah,
So I'm all about, because too many people say, oh, we help cut. You have to be specific on the outcomes. And
yeah,
a lot of times it's dollar signs. So yes, I mean yeah, that's always try to like, and customers, you have to kind of like, again, say low, make it easy on low figure. But at least that's nice to say 8 grand. Say, hey, they say a low figure is 8 grand. They said it could be more, but
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
always
I
get,
like that too because now you've also resold that customer, and they're even that much more excited that
yeah,
they're
yeah.
part of your crew. So I love that. Well, Scott, the conversation has been full of value. You've had a ton. You dropped a ton of truth bombs, I think, on our audience today. So thanks so much for coming back on the show. And hey, it's an open invitation for you to come back yet again in the near future.
Hey, I really thank you guys for bringing me on for the opportunity. And as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this, and I'm for sales professionals and their families. I really hope a few companies want a huge competitive edge to crush their competitors and follow some of my advice.
Love it. And Scott won't say it, but I will. Go buy his book. It's really good stuff.
Hey, thanks,
Well,
Jonathan.
that's going to wrap it up for this session. And by the way, if you our sponsor as always is overpass.com. If you want some great people that can just do good work, quality professionals at a fair price to you and a good pay for them, jump on the platform. It is free for hiring managers to create your account. You can get virtual assistants, people in customer service, anybody that you need to work the telephones that with fantastic skills. You need to check out Overpass. It's free to open your account, like I said. Put your first job post up, and the AI will send you 15, 20 candidates. You get a free account manager that is going to reach out, send you even more candidates. You could have 5, 10, 15 people hired in as many days. It's an amazing platform. Check it out at overpass.com. And if you've been enjoying the content here on the Evolve Sales Leader, of course, go check us out. Our podcast is available anywhere you like to go and get your podcast, whether that's Google, Apple, or what have you. The Evolve Sales Leader. Go check out our past episodes, including the previous appearance of Scott Marker and other fantastic guests, and feel extra value into your workout or drive time. Well, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thanks again to everybody for being here, both live and listening after the fact. It's a privilege to be your host. I'll see you right here, same time, same station, the next time. Take care, everybody.